Welcome to another edition of Mark's Inspiration. Glad you could join me here today as always. It's a cloudy day in St. Louis, Missouri today. Hope it's wonderful wherever you are in the world. And today's topic, we are going to continue with resilience. The importance of resilience in your life today. In achieving your goals, your dreams, your vision, your purpose. You must have resilience, the ability to bounce back when it seems like you're not going to make it. When you get knocked down, when you get discouraged, when you become disheartened, when these things push you back, knock you down, you have to have resilience. You have to be able to get back up and to keep going. Even in the face of what seems like you're never going to make it. Insurmountable obstacles. There are no insurmountable obstacles. You only create them within your mind. Something to think about. Smash that like button, subscribe, and we will continue with resilience. I found this article in the American Psychological Association. It's actually about resilience in a time of war. Well, in the world, there's always a war somewhere. That's been going on since man has inhabited this earth. I think there's always been a war or a battle going on somewhere in the world. So it's always a time of war. So these things happen and we have to be resilient. We have to accept that that is the way that human beings are. Maybe someday we will rise above that, but today we have not yet done so. So, although you may think kids, they're talking about children, are too young to understand, even very young children can become frightened after seeing the news or overhearing conversations. I grew up during the Vietnam War, and they had on the nightly news, they actually had film of the actual battles and people getting killed and the helicopters and those things. I vaguely remember it. Whether it affected me or not, I'm not sure. I do remember being afraid that I was going to be drafted when I became about 10 or 11 years old because the war was still going on then. So I was thinking about Canada. No, I don't know if I was or not, but when I remember it, that's what I think I was thinking about. But who is it? What do they say? 75% of what you remember is not really how it was. So maybe I wasn't thinking about Canada. But I do remember the war going on, and I do remember feeling fear. Now, before that, I remember in school, I was a first grader, I was 6 years old. So that was 66, or actually 65. Maybe it was kindergarten. But I remember being afraid the Russians were going to blow up the world. Or we were both going to blow up the world, the Russians and the US, with our nuclear warheads. Because at that time, they were teaching us to duck and cover. They had the drills where we pretended that we were being bombed by the Russians. The nuclear warheads were coming. And these things created a great fear within me, as well as I'm sure in other children, because you were thinking the world was going to end any day. People were building bomb shelters back then. They had the fallout shelters, they called them, places where you would go if they did send the missiles to destroy us. So that followed me until I was probably about 20 or 21, because I remember when I first started boxing, of course I had the dream of becoming a world champion, but I thought, what's the point? Because they're going to blow the world up anyway. Even in the 80s, I was still worried about that. And even in the 80s, the nuclear war was a big threat. I suppose it may be a threat today, but not like it was back in the day, as they say. So I was affected by it, I'm sure, because I didn't really think about planning my future because, hey, the world's going to end anyway. Well, guess what? Here I am at 60 years old and it hasn't ended yet. Maybe it will, but I tell my children not to worry about it because someone is always predicting the end of the world. And if you listen to that too much, you don't feel like there's any point in making goals or having a vision or a purpose because, hey, it's all going to end anyway. And it may end, but it probably will end if if and when you pass on. We all pass on, but that day it will end for you. It will be the end of your world as you know it. So let's go on with this resilience and see what they have to say. Okay, introduction. A time of war can be very scary for very young children, especially because terrorism has brought fear so close to home. Terrorism. Now there's a buzzword for you. Terrorism. You know, actually, we here in the U.S. practiced terrorism against the British during the War of Independence, the Revolutionary War, because at that time, it was in battle, you were supposed to meet on the field of honor. If any of you have watched these old movies where they all line up on one side of the field and the other, and they just go toward each other and they just start shooting, okay? Well, the Americans, us, we knew we couldn't defeat the British in this manner. So we started hiding and sniping them, sniper fire, and ambushing them. This was really thought of as low-life tactics. It was less than honorable. It was really dirty, as they called it back then. The same as we would view the terrorists as they attack different places with bombs and suicide missions and different things like that. But this is always how a lesser power attacks a greater power. When the opposing side, let's say, is more powerful and they cannot defeat them on the field of honor, whatever that happens to be in battle, if there is such a thing as a field of honor. I know during the Vietnam War, many people did not like the soldiers because they had found out that they had killed men, women, and children that weren't actually soldiers. So they considered them, I don't know what they considered, but they despised them. But war has always been like that. Things like that happen in war, but this was the first time that it was ever publicized where the general public could actually see what went on during war. But that's just the way war is. It's not a pretty thing. It's a horrible, terrible thing. But people just don't understand that. And I have never been in battle. I have never been in the army service of any kind. I don't want any part of it. Okay, but I had friends that came back from there and it affected them greatly. It was a terrible thing. I didn't think any less of them. I had friends later on in life that told me some of the things that they had to do over there, that they did, that they of course weren't proud of, but it becomes survival. And unless you've ever been in that situation, you can't judge. You are capable of doing the very same thing, even though you may think you're not. You have to remember, walk a mile in a man's shoes and then judge him. Those are terrible situations. But the people that were judging them had never been in those situations. That's why when the soldiers came back from Vietnam, they were treated very badly. This is the way things go sometimes in life. Is that fair? No. But is life fair? No. Is that bad? Sometimes. Sometimes it's good. I'm glad life is not fair. But things work out for the best. When you look in the past, you look back in retrospect. Okay. Events are uncertain for children. Their friends, parents, or perhaps their own parents may be called away to serve in the military. Although you may think they are too young to understand what is happening, even very young children can absorb frightening events from the news or from conversations they overhear. You teach your children so much: how to walk, how to talk, how to share. You may wonder how you can possibly teach them and reassure them during a time of war. The good news is that many children have a certain amount of natural ability to bounce back from bad events. The better news is that it is possible to teach children the skills of resilience, the ability to adapt well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or even significant source of stress. And I'm going to tell you, I have 8 kids, And the best way to teach your children is by example. More truth is caught than taught. My children learn more by what I do than by what I say. Now, if my words align with my actions, then that helps. But if they don't, all the speaking in the world doesn't make any difference. There's an old saying, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And what does that mean? The children many times are very much like the parents. I mean, for example, when I grew up, my dad drank. I hated that he was like he was. And I said, I'll never drink. Well, guess what? I ended up drinking. But I quit before I had any children, so my kids have never seen me drink. Okay, and hopefully they will never see me drink again. I'm not going to drink today, tomorrow, I don't know. But you got to live in the moment. But the point is, they see me dealing with life on life's terms without running away into drugs or alcohol. Now, if you take drugs occasionally, you're a recreational user, or you smoke pot or marijuana, weed, whatever they call it now, or you drink occasionally, there's nothing wrong with that, okay? But if it becomes an addiction or something you have to run to every time life gets tough, then you may have an issue, and you're passing that on to your children. But in the reverse of that, if your children see you dealing with life in constructive, positive ways, they will pick up on that. Children learn what they live. What are you teaching your children? Okay, and if you're younger and you don't like what your parents do, you can change that with your kids. I tell my kids that I've tried to improve on the things that I didn't like what my father did, and of course I'm going to make mistakes also. So what they don't like when they have children, they can try to be better than me, and thus you improve through the generations as we go. That's all we can do, is try to be better or different. I hate to say better because it implies that there's something wrong with you or that you're not good enough. You are good enough. Don't live your life thinking you're not good enough, or thinking that when you get this success, or when you become this, or when you run one more mile, or do one more rep, or box one more round in the ring, or whatever it happens to be, that you're going to be good enough. Or you get this certain amount of money, or you get this certain job, or this house. You're good enough right now. And if you're not good enough right now, no matter what you have in the future, will make you feel like you're good enough. Okay? Love yourself, accept yourself how you are right now. And you can't expect anyone else to love you or respect you until you love and respect yourself, because people will only reflect back to you how you feel about yourself. How do you treat yourself? How do you talk to yourself? Would you talk to your best friend that way? Would you treat your best friend that way? Would you treat your child that way? These are questions you need to ask yourself. Most people don't think, as I have said before, they just remember. Contemplate your life. It's kind of like a form of meditation. But think about your life. Think about what you're thinking about. Think about the impression and the impact you're having on other people in your life. Think about the impact and the impression other people are making on you in your life. These things are important to contemplate, because until you know where you are and what you're doing, you can never change that. If you go through life on autopilot, which many people do, just doing the same things out of habit every day, over and over and over again, guess what? Nothing will change in your life. If you're happy with the way things are now, that's fine. Okay, but if you want something different, you have to do something different. One definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Contemplate that one for a while. And that's all we have time for today. We will come back tomorrow and continue with resilience, unless I come up with something that seems more interesting. But thanks for joining me. Smash that like button. Have a great day.